We're doing our top 5 positional group rankings around Major League Baseball. So far, we've done right fielders and center fielders. Today, we're going to address left fielders. Now, the elephant in the room is I fucked up.
Okay.
I didn't project ahead when we started this contest. I would have had Corbin Carroll in my top 5, probably over Kyle Tucker for right fielders, which is where he's going to be playing this year. When I was doing my homework, I was just thoughtlessly, he played the most games in left last year. So I have Corbin Carroll number 1 on my left fielder list, even though he's going to be a right fielder this year. I made a 6th to make a unofficial top 5, but I'm going to fall on the sword, and I done messed up, and I put Corbin Carroll in left field, and even though he's going to be a right fielder this year. So just want to get out in front of that.
Second caveat, by the way. I know a lot of lists have Yordan Alvarez as a top left fielder.
Yes.
We are considering Yordan Alvarez a DH. You're not going to see him on any of our lists because he is a designated hitter according to us.
Yes, and he will be the number 1 designated hitter.
A third caveat to your first and your second caveat really quickly. I know, we've got to add all these disclaimers because people are like misunderstanding our list. These are projected going into 2024. So it's based on what we think who we think is going to be the top ranked players in 2024 based on the positions, as you are both mentioning with Yordan as a great example and Corbin, where their team has currently listed them for playing in that position. Yes. Okay, so let's go number 5.
All right, I'll kick it off. Number 5, I have Brandon Nimmo. Now, we all kind of hate that name because of his time with the Mets, but Brandon Nimmo was really pretty damn good last year. The left field position is kind of lame. Now, because I mess up with Corbin Carroll, I'll also slash my 6th or 5th because Corbin Carroll doesn't really count. So, theoretically, Brandon Nimmo is the 4th. So my 6th left fielder, which is actually 5, is either Christian Yelich or Chas McCormick. Okay. But at number 5, I have Brandon Nimmo.
Lots of slashes and asterisks
right now.
Well, when
you mess up,
I like how you are putting it all out there.
Yeah, so that's my 6, which is really 5th. So Brandon Nimmo would be 4th.
What is your poop thing today? All right, Christian Yelich is my number 5, actually. Listen, we've seen the interesting thing for all of these lists that I feel like I come up with for my guys is these are former MVP players that maybe have had an injury-plagued season, and I'm expecting a bounce-back year. Christian Yelich, specifically in 2023, had more of an up year. It was a better season for him. Finished the year batting .278, 19 homers, OPS of .818. On the defensive side, I thought it was just solid. So although he, has had some ups and downs in his career, I think this year we're going to get him as a number 5 left fielder.
Tyler, you're number 5.
Guys, can I tell you how much I struggled with, projection versus reality in the sense that I really, really struggled with.
Birds aren't real. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Fair enough. I really, really struggled with how do I put young guys on this list, projecting their careers, because it was a really difficult time for me to not put Evan Carter on this list, despite the fact that he only played a handful of games. I think the kid's going to be a stud, but it was a very small sample size and an elite level performance at the highest level. But for me, I am going to start this thing off with Steven Kwan. And I think that Steven Kwan's value primarily comes from the defensive side of things. His glove is elite. The Guardians have a really elite pairing in left and center field defensively between Steven Kwan and Miles Straw. Now, Miles Straw can't hit. Steven Kwan can. Kwan hit .278 last year. I think that he finally is starting to kind of come into his own offensively a little bit. To me, he's the type of guy that goes undervalued because of the fact that he plays for the Guardians and he plays in the AL Central. And I think that that's unfair to a player of his caliber. I really like Steven Kwan's game, and I'm not sure he's peaked just yet. I think he can get a little bit better. I'm going to put Steven Kwan at number 5 to start my list.
Well, I'll take your torch and run with it because number 4 on my list is Steven Kwan. 3.6 WAR last year, which is probably a little better than most people would realize. As you said, defensively, he's just a wizard. He added 20-plus stolen bases last year. Maybe that's something that can grow closer to that 30 mark if the Guardians use him well. And batted .268, not a slub defensively. He's never going to give you much pop or power. But I think Steven Kwan is a underrated left fielder around baseball.
All right, my number 4, and Kwan was someone I considered for my list, but he's actually not on my list at all. He's in that next 6, 7, 8 tier. But not my number 4 Brian Reynolds. And you may be wondering why. There's been some question marks around Brian Reynolds. A 5.9 WAR in 2021, then a 2.9 WAR in 22, a 2.4 WAR in 2023. His defensive WAR, a negative 0.5 that we saw with the Pirates. Now, for Brian Reynolds, I do feel like he's someone that we have seen him at his best, you know, looking back a couple years ago specifically. And we've seen the drop off of Brian Reynolds. And much like Christian Yelich, left field's a weird position in general. It's hard to figure out who's going to be where because it's been all over the place, in my opinion. But I think that Brian Reynolds is going to get an up year this year. I think he's going to improve on the defensive side. He has hit around 25 homers a year. And I think Brian Reynolds is number 4. Not confident in this, but I'm going with it.
Not confident in this. That really instills confidence in me for this
Left
next
field
one.
is really tough. Oh my Lord.
My 4 and 3 were toss-ups to me. I think you could make a case that either of these two guys could be in either one of the spots. I decided to go with the player with more, I think, path to more growth, despite the fact that my 4 is not like he's old, but I think maybe what we valued him as a young guy when he won the Rookie of the Year with the Tampa Bay Rays is a little bit over expectation. I'm going to go Randy Arozarena at number 4. That 250, 260 average is probably where you expect to see him. You see his numbers have dropped batting average-wise from 280 in that shortened season in 2020. When he wins Rookie of the Year in 21, he's down to 270. 2022, he's in the 260s. Last year, he was down to 250. And yes, he was an all-star last year, but I think that this is the type of player that Randy Arozarena probably is. High OBP, a 260-ish hitter, 20 to 25, maybe peaking up towards 30 home runs. He's going to steal you some bags. He is the epitome of cool. And I think that helps him for sure.
It's part of why I can't quit him.
And I think that there's something to be said for a guy that posts an 11 WAR over the course of 5 seasons, and really it's a 10 WAR over the course of 3 seasons. I really like Randy Arozarena's game. The guy ahead of him, I think projects a little bit higher for me, and it's the only reason he's at 4 and my next player's at 3.
Yeah, so I have Randy Arozarena at 3. As you said, playoff, like he's one of the few Rays that shows up in the postseason. He's got that swag. He's got that coolness. I almost toyed with going higher. As Tyler said, he had a 365 on base last year. Insane. For a guy with the 30-plus home run potential. He's just an athlete when he gets on the base pass and in the field. He's a fun player to watch. I think he's got kind of that electricity. I toyed with putting him right behind Corbin Carroll at number 2, even though Corbin Carroll's a right fielder. I messed up. Randy Arozarena, number 3 for me.
Yeah, I'm going Mr. Clutch, from leading Team Mexico in the World Baseball Classic over Team USA to then also being that spark plug for the Rays. Randy Arozarena is also my number 3 because I do agree with you guys, and you've already hit on everything. So I'm just going to say ditto and ditto. And yes, Randy is number 3, the strong at-bats, the strong defensive side, and he should be that third best left fielder.
If Tampa ever decides to sell him, which they do with all their great players, I would do bad things to get Randy Arozarena in Citizens Bank Park.
We had talked about him, and I remember you saying that.
Tyler, number 3 for you.
My number 3 is Renee's number 4, I believe you had him at, and it's the guy that I had a toss-up between him and Arozarena. It's Brian Reynolds. And I think the reason that I go Reynolds over Arozarena is I just feel a little bit more confident that Reynolds' game is not fully complete yet. And I'm not to say that Arozarena's isn't either, but I think you're seeing a continued. I think you could see a continued ascension or a resurgence to an ascension, like you talked about, Renee, from that 302, 395, 22 split 2021, where he was an all-star and everything really clicked. And listen, a 6.5 WAR that season, an offensive WAR that season, is probably an anomaly, but this guy can, I think, be much closer to the 4 WAR that he posted in 2022. I think he's a 30 home run type caliber player, and if I'm taking defense between Arozarena and Reynolds, they're pretty even. They're both about league average, slightly behind, so that really doesn't play too much for me. Obviously, Arozarena is going to steal more bags. This is just a personal choice for me. I like Reynolds a little bit. I like Reynolds' complete game a little bit more than Arozarena, but it was a toss-up.
Yeah, I feel that was my tear-up, too.
My number 2 is Brian Reynolds, and Tyler pretty much just covered it all. I think he has a higher upside than Arozarena, as you hit on, Renee. Down, kind of down season from the year prior where he was excellent. I'm betting on him getting back to that 2021 excellent type of year, because I think when he's on, like, he is that 5 tool, potential every day, just like lockdown left fielder. Really, really good. The fact that I have Corbin Carroll ahead of him when I messed up, like, is Brian Reynolds really the best left fielder in baseball? Like, is that what I'm saying? That's how kind of weird left field is. It's center and right are loaded with talent, and then left field has become like kind of, when I was growing up, right field was the weaker of the two. Like, you always kind of put like not the worst, well, yeah, the worst player, because kids can't hit opposite field. But like right field was always that. Now it seems to be left field, at least in the majors. So who's your number 2?
All right. Well, I like that we have similar names, just in different spots. And I'm going with somebody that many might underrate a little bit. Brandon Nimmo as my number 2. Listen, every season he's been improving, in my opinion. I know you had him lower down on your list, Jamie, but if you look at his numbers, in every full season when healthy, he has not had an OPS below 800, consistently been able to get on base. He finished 2023 with that 274 batting average, but since 2021, his numbers have been improving, and he's been able to stay healthy. So I think a healthy Brandon Nimmo, obviously he is moving to left field since Harrison Bader is going to be playing center field. And I think Brandon Nimmo right now, the way that he's been improving and his numbers have been on the positive, his consistency, his ability to add to the Mets lineup in a number of ways, he's number 2 for me.
Tyler, number 2?
Yeah, I'm not going to add a whole lot more because Brandon Nimmo is my number 2 as well.
You too.
I think that maybe you can add
My
him
Mets
to the list.
had him at 5.
You can add him to
I
the list of
see.
4, 3, and 2 of guys that you could interchange in any capacity. I think that moving to left field is not going to hinder him in any way. He was really strong in center last year. You get Harrison Bader, who is a better defender than Nimmo is, and I think that maybe you get a chance to see Nimmo be more cautiously aggressive in spots because he knows he has Bader to his left, and I think maybe that may help him defensively just a little bit. I don't think that any of these 3 guys are wrong at 2, 3, and 4, so I'm not going to add too much. I'm going Brandon Nimmo at number 2 as well.
All right, my number 1. Told you I messed up. I put Corbin Carroll there. He'd be a top 5 right fielder if he was left field, which he was the majority of last year. That's switching for him. He'd be the number 1 left fielder. The kid's phenomenal. I didn't want to short him out of right field because he's, the rookie of the year, and he looks like this kid is damn electric. So I have him number 1, even though he's going to be playing the opposite side this year.
And now I'm concerned because my number 1 is not even on your list at all, Jamie. And Tyler, I'm intrigued to see if he's on yours. I'm going Ian Happ, actually. Now, Ian Happ, we saw 154 games for him in left field last season, an OPS of 112. Won his 2nd consecutive Gold Glove. I think Ian Happ is someone I've seen, weirdly enough, fluctuate between lists that have come out where he's on some top 10 lists. He's not on lists at all. But Ian Happ, in my opinion, is someone that has the all-around complete game, and also another one that's improved in all areas of his game, hitting for a higher average, playing better defense. His power's been there since 2021. And the Gold Glover Ian Happ is my number 1 overall because I just can't look past his improvements in his stats and the numbers that he had. Even in 2023, a WAR of 3, 248 batting average, 21 homers. Ian Happ, number 1.
Who you got, Tyler?
Yeah, I think Ian Happ's a good choice for a top 5. He probably sits just outside of the top 5 for me, along with Chas McCormick.
Yeah, Chaz was my 7th.
This
My
is
lists are all over.
maybe
Westchester's finest.
Maybe this is hypocritical for what I just said about Evan Carter and why he's not on my list, because my number 1 left fielder is a projected decision here, and maybe I'm giving a little bit of love to the hometown kid. Maybe I just think that this kid is going to be a star in the making. A player that neither of you two had on your list sits number 1 on my list. It's Colorado Rockies' Nolan Jones. Near 300 hitter last year. Again, I know it's a small sample size. I think this kid is going to exponentially get better. Yes, he plays in a hitter-friendly ballpark. I understand the numbers get inflated when you play at Coors Field, but I think that this kid is on the cusp of being a very legit star. And yes, he Holy Ghost guy. He's a local kid.
He's a Holy Ghost kid? I didn't realize.
Had to give him a little bit of love, but
I almost went to Holy Ghost.
I genuinely think that Nolan Jones could be a star in the making in the next couple of seasons for the Rockies.
Awesome.
Well,
so
let me rephrase that. He could be a star in the making and then get traded to somebody else where he succeeds.
So Chas McCormick and Nolan Jones locally. We got left fielders on lockdown here in the Delaware Valley.